Hi there. In scientific fields, learning how to draw things properly and within correct perspectives and highlighting good detail is really important. So today I'm going to give you a quick run through on the best way to scientifically draw a fossil. So here directly in front of us we have a bivalve, and so this is a relatively small fossil, only a couple of centimetres in size. So if we have a look there, it's about 3 centimetres. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to mark out the major points along this fossil. So I'm first going to point out the maximum, and if we follow the major features along here, we can also put a mark here, and then we can also mark out the maximum distance this way. So we've got over here, if we go along, it's about over here. So now that we've got this in a single size, what's if we want to blow it up bigger? So today we'll use a 2:1 ratio, and the best thing to do is, using our 4 points, is we just mark out a little cross section. So we can do this slightly with a pencil. That means we won't have to erase it later on when we've finished our diagram. So we've now finished our little cross with our central point here. And so this will continue to be the centre point of our drawing. Now in order to go into a 2:1 ratio, we have to double the distances from the central point out to each point as we move along. So I'm going to quickly do that now for you. So this is about 1 centimetre, so we're going to move it out to 2, and we continue that process all the way along. So now we can see that we've got all our new points marked out. And so essentially all we have to do is do a simple join the dots. So here I'm just going to follow the outline, so we can see at the point we've got a bit of a curve and that it leans this way. So I'm going to start off with this top point. I prefer to start off top. You can start off wherever you want. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a faint line intersecting that point and showing that it comes in a bit, kind of hooks back out like that. We go down here to our other point, which we've now intersected. I'm going to continue this around. Now you can probably notice already that this is slightly off, but that is okay. We can address that a little bit later. So if we bring that around somewhere along there. And you know what? That's actually not that bad. Just bring that out a little bit more. There we go. And so now we've got our outline. And the really important thing to do with our outline, to make it simpler for later on, if we make this outline nice and thick and dark. So by using these darker lines, we can choicely amplify and make certain features of this artefact pop out. But it also means we don't really have to worry about our lighter lines that we left there originally. So the next thing we can do is we can start adding in some detail. So one thing I might like to add in first is this little borehole here. So I'm going to have a look. We can see it's just below that point and almost along the same axis, but then just slightly in. So I'm going to draw it just along the same axis, slightly in, just away from that lump, and we've got a little hole. We also have ridges running this direction, and then also very minor ones going this direction. So if you remember just what I talked about regarding using the thickness of lines, so we can actually use this to point out different features as well. So what I'm going to first do is show these major lines, these big ridges that run around the fossil. So at the top we can see that the ridges are really close to this point, which is called the umber. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show that at that point they're very close together, and as we move out they get further away. Also notice how as I draw the lines we are making sure that we're showing that they curve right around, because they actually continue all the way around to the back of the fossil. If we show that a bit more. Now you can already see I've made a couple of errors, so we just fix that up with some more line work. And then once again, just finish that one off. Once again, making sure our outline's nice and thick. So I haven't drawn every single one, otherwise this is going to get a little bit too clustered. But we can show this later on in a zoomed image. Next we're going to do is we're going to try and show these very fine little ridges that run from the umber all the way to the front of the mollusk. And so once again, if we can it's a bit difficult to see with the camera at the moment, but we can see it runs from the umber and all the way down to the front, following this almost asymmetrical pattern. So just using the lighter part of our pencil, we can show that, with lighter lines showing that depth. And so you can probably notice as we go along that I'm not exactly an artist, and you don't have to be an artist to scientifically draw. The only thing that's important is that we make sure that we get our perspectives right, our scales right, and really highlight those features that we want to highlight. Because we could take a photo, and a lot of the times in the field we do take photos of fossils, rocks that we can see, but a photo will never point out the really important features. However, if we're drawing something, we can really highlight those features well. So here we go, just finishing off some of those lighter ones. And so now we can see that we've got our two ridge patterns. We've got our lateral ones and these ones that go from the umber out to the front. Now the next thing we could do to kind of give this image a little bit more depth is we can add some shading. Now, I know that you're probably thinking, now wait a second, Liam, shading's a little bit advanced, but all it really requires is that we just lightly shade some of these edges where we can see there it kind of drops off, and we can show some shadow, excuse my stutter. And so we can do the same thing just in that little curve, and we can that just shows that this is a 3D shape. It's not just a single 2D drawing. So we can do things like that. Now, to do this really well, we can use multiple different pencils. We can even add in some colour just to make certain features pop out. So typically what we do next is we're going to do a zoom. So what we're going to do is we'll just perhaps zoom on in this little feature here. And all we have to do is just do a little line coming off it, and we can show those features more. So what we might do, if I just have a little bit more of a look, I might use my hand lens at this instance to get more of an idea of what we're looking at. Okay, I think I've got an idea. And so what we're going to do is we're going to draw some of these ridges. So I'm going to draw one of these big ridges and the second one as well. And I'm going to show that they're interlinked by these very small, finer ridges, like that. And that these ridges continue down And so once again, we can add a little bit of shadow to kind of give it that idea that this is a 3D object. And so there's a couple of things missing out of this image already. So just take a second to think about something that you might include within this. So did you have a think? What did you think they were? So the first major thing that we're missing is our scale. It's always important to show a scale bar. And so as we mentioned earlier, this is a 2:1 drawing. So it's a 2:1. And so the best way we can represent that is by just drawing a 2 centimetre line. And I'm going to say that 2 centimetre line is actually 1 centimetre in life. Another way we can do that is we can draw lines on our fossil itself. So for example, if I wanted to demonstrate the distance between those maximum points, all I would need to do was I'd draw a line to those maximum points. And so sometimes we can dot them. I like to dot them out just to show whoever's looking at this image exactly how far we're talking and where the points are from. And then we can give a measurement for that. So I'm just going to measure that one up now. So that measurement's about 2.8 centimetres. So I can write that here. 2.8 centimetres. And so the next thing that we've missed, and you probably heard me kind of talking about it throughout this little tutorial, is that we've missed annotating this. So yes, we do have a zoom, but what's that zoom showing? What's this hole here? And what's that point I talked about earlier? So we can do that now. So we can add in a point here, which is what I'd call an umber. We can also add in things like this little hole, which is a borehole. And we can identify things. So these thick lines I can say is a primary ridge. And then our more faint lines we can add in as our secondary ridge. Once again, pointing to it. And so overall, that's not a bad diagram. However, we typically annotate a lot more. However, for the purpose of your assignment, I will not be giving too much away other than the umber and that little borehole. Now, one more thing is that you notice we've annotated this, but we've still got to annotate our little diagram. So all we're going to do, same thing again. So I can actually give these little notations. So for our primary ridge, I might label it PR. And for our secondary ridge, I might label it SR. And so we can use these little abbreviations further on in our annotations. So we can show that really well with our primary ridge. And that's our PR. And then those little ones is our SR. And that, as we can see, is a bit of a simple summary of the features that we can see in this lovely fossil. And we could add in a little bit of shading underneath these. But now we're just getting to the point where it's getting a little bit finicky. Tweezy, thank you for watching, and hopefully we'll see some very good scientific drawings out of you in the next couple of weeks.